Welcome back to the Trotter Chatter podcast. It's Ryan as usual. I'm joined by Ben, obviously as normal. How are you doing, pal?
I'm doing good, mate. How are you? How are you getting on today?
Splendid, splendid, splendid. So, to give people a bit of background, we're recording this a bit earlier than we normally would do, but it's an international break, so we thought we'd utilise the time. And we are joined by Jack Ward from the Jack Ward podcast and that League One podcast. How are you doing, pal?
Yes, I'm good, mate. Really excited to be on here. I think it's going to be a massive game. I think it's got a lot riding on it, and we're only 17 games into the season. It's really exciting, but yeah, really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Well, for those who don't know you, then tell us a bit about sort of what you do. Then, where you've sort of built your platform, etc.
Yeah, the platform started on YouTube, so it started I think 3 seasons ago. I touched on Oxford United quite heavily as an Oxford fan, and it sort of really went from there. It started there. It started quite slowly because Oxford aren't one of the biggest clubs in League One. I think we've been privileged to have quite a few very, very historical, rich clubs in this league, and Bolton are one of those, and Oxford unfortunately aren't. So it was a bit of a slow start, and then we reached out to the wider side of League One. We touched on every single football club. We do roundups now every single week. I'm on that League One podcast with Ben and Tom and Jake. I think Tom will be Ben will be well known in the League One scene from Fauna written all over it and Cod's vlogs. We work with them on a regular basis. Really good friends with them, and I think we sort of share audiences now, to be honest. So yeah, really, really exciting journey that I'm currently on. And yeah, hopefully it can sort of continue, and Oxford can also continue in the positive way that it started this season, because it's been a good one so far.
It has, and that League One podcast might be quite short lived by the looks of things at the minute. Too, you might be off into the
I
champion.
know one could be going down. I think we started. I think at one point we were a few weeks in, and it was a case of we could have Nappers in League Two, and me and Tom in the Championship, and then Jake would stay in League One. So we'd actually touch in the end on every league of the football league, which wouldn't be quite how we. So we've had to think of name changes already, which is quite bizarre. But I mean, a lot can change. I think Fleetwood are nearly out of the bottom form. We've had our manager go. So I know Liam Manning went. I know we've got a new one now, but it did look like that could potentially derail it. But yeah, you're right. At one point, it looked like it could go from that League One podcast to that every other league in the Football League podcast.
Nice, very interesting. We're still a long season to go. Obviously, as of recording, just to sort of set the scene at the minute, Oxford are second in the league. They are above Bolton on just 3 goals in goal difference. 11 wins in 16 games. Then how you feeling about the start of the season?
Yeah, really happy with it. Really, really happy with it. I think it's really difficult not to be sort of over the moon with the way that we started, especially on last season. I think last season was so bad. It was tedious. It felt last season like it went on forever at one point. It thankfully stopped and quickened up slightly when Liam Manning came in, and Robinson was sacked after quite a successful time as Oxford manager. To be honest, if you actually reflect on his time, it was a good 3-4 years. He took us to 2 playoff campaigns, and we were always competing, playing some fantastic football, some great cup runs, but it had to end and it had to come to a conclusion. And sacking him at that period of time in March where it looked like we were destined for relegation, it was the right decision. Liam Manning came in, and look, he turned us around. Ultimately, he saved us from relegation. He rebuilt the squad that needed to be rebuilt over the summer. We brought in and have brought in some really exciting players, a young group of players that now are playing a fantastic brand of football, fearless brand of football. It's progressive, it's front footed, it's a really, really good style of football. And look, it was a massive heartbreak a couple of weeks ago where we found out that Liam Manning wouldn't be staying as Oxford manager. He'd be going to the Championship with Bristol City. And I think Bolton and Pompey fans were looking at this with quite a bit of delight. And as much as I'm sure there was a level of well, maybe not. I think some people maybe felt bad a little bit for Oxford because he ultimately did use as a stepping stone, as maybe a lot of people would have thought he would have done when he joined. But it was a massive, massive shame. But an opportunity for the Oxford season to be derailed. And we played Leighton Orient last week, and it looked as though we might have got away with it. And appointing somebody like Dez Buckingham with a fantastic CV that I'm sure you'll ask me about in just a second, sort of having him come in and to pick up what is a really, really good squad in a really good place. I think we're all still pretty optimistic, but it has been a fantastic and phenomenal start. We've had a bit of a hiccup with a managerial change, but ultimately now, if we can stay on the same road, and we've played a game without a manager and still won away to Leighton Orient, which is a very, very tough place to go, I still think, yeah, that the feel of excitement is still buzzing around the Oxford fan base right now.
Yeah, well, I think that can go a long way, can't it? sort of we did like a league prediction before that started.
Right.
I think Jordan, who was on our podcast, he was the only one to have Oxford up there. He was basically on the business that you've done, the way that Liam Manning looked, sort of. How did you sort of see the season going before it started? Did you expect such a good start?
I expected a much better season. To be honest, I expected a much better season. The business that we did, I don't think you could have sort of ignored that. Players like Ruben Rodriguez coming in from Notts County was exceptional in the National League, and he was wanted by so many football clubs, Derby County in League One, but also quite a few we believe in the Championship. I think most League One clubs would take Ruben in their side and would have taken Ruben in their team and probably would start in their team. Even the likes of Bolton and Pompey, who are up with us right now, he probably would demand a first team place, and that's how good he is and how good he's proven to be so far. He's always I think on the eye you could see the first few games what a talent he is, but the output's there now. He scored 2 goals against Leyton Orient, and he scored I think in total now 5 and plenty other contributions. So players like that who we haven't really been able to recruit in previous years. Oxford, I think we've been left behind slightly with those type of moves of taking players that are hungry for success and hungry to make a difference in the league above. Sometimes we've sort of recruited for those that in the Championship that maybe you've already done it, or maybe you've already felt they've achieved the Championship success, and now they're sort of coming to Oxford at 27, 28 after a bad injury or a bad run of form in the league above and haven't really got that eager desire to be successful. I think Ruben is an example of somebody that's a little bit different and sort of goes against that mould. Players, again, like Mark Harris, who we signed, Stanley Mills on loan from Everton, we've used the loan market effectively from Premier League clubs, again, with the intention for these younger players to prove that they can be successful and want to be successful in the long term. So the squad is definitely rebuilt, it's refreshed. And when you look at that, I think that's why a lot of people thought there would be an improvement. I didn't actually have us in the top 6. I had us in 7th. I thought we'd have to improve so much to get sort of where we were last season to get in anywhere near playoff contention. Obviously, it's gone much better than we thought. Beating Derby away and Barnsley away at the start of the season was a really, really big statement. And we felt, right, there could be something on here. We lost our first game of the season as well. And again, that was one of those moments where you look back and go, we really have improved even since that game. But we've been on a roll, to be honest, since that point. And again, I think that's probably where the optimism was built, especially in the summer, because that squad needed tearing apart and rebuilding again. And it was done, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's all we sort of really had to look at. It was the shortest summer break we've had in a long, long time, and all we really had was the entertainment of watching the signings coming in. I always remember seeing Oxford pinging up on my social media timelines. Ben, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, so going back to another lad you signed in the summer, James Beadle. We were linked with him before we ended up getting Nathan Baxter. How's he been for you?
Really, really good. Yeah, really good. I thought he would go to Bolton, to be honest. I thought he would go to Bolton. He's very, very similar to James Trafford in the way that he's a goalkeeper. So I thought that made total sense. I thought, to be honest, what Bolton have tried to do with their goalkeepers is, especially with James Trafford's a great example, is look at a goalkeeper from the Premier League who plays out from the back. He's very, very modernised, and Trafford was that to a T. And Beadle is that. He is a very, very confident player. I think he's 19 years of age. He's the same age as me, which is frightening. But he looks and acts like he's about 25. He's that type of player, the one that should be playing. I think he feels like he should be playing and has been playing for a long period of time. And you can sort of visually see that. He looks like he's a 25-year-old goalkeeper, and he's not. He's very, very young in his career and his time as a footballer. But he's extremely confident, slightly rash if I was going to be really critical, but sometimes that rashness can be a fantastic trait that he's got, because he comes out, he claims everything, he's completely fearless, totally fearless, doesn't a ball in the face, running out a player's legs or 5 players' legs in the penalty area. He's not concerned about that whatsoever. So I was surprised Bolton didn't go and do that. I think Baxter's done a pretty good job, to be honest.
Like James Trafford to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing just James Trafford. So.
He is. That's why I thought Bolton would do it, because he is that young goalkeeper who does not care what comes his way, and he probably will make mistakes this season. He probably will do something where you go, "Oh, James, what have you done that for? How have you come to that decision in that moment?" But there's also times where he's going to keep us in games. He's going to do things where you go, "Well, right, that's why he's at Brighton Hove Albion. That's why we've got him on loan, and that's why he probably will be playing in the Championship or above in 2 or 3 years' time." When, of course, he'd only be about 22, which is just ridiculous.
Yes, that is massive. That is massive. Obviously, we like to think we're on the pulse here at Trotter Chatter. Hot off the press, new manager for Oxford, Dez
Yeah.
Buckingham. So I'd be lying if I said I even knew the guy was until I saw the post today. You look at his quite decorated but interesting managerial career. Wellington Phoenix, Stoke under 21s, and then has basically been involved with the New Zealand national team at various levels until he took a job at Melbourne as assistant manager. And then I believe you guys have pulled him from Mumbai City. So what was your thoughts on that?
Delighted. To be honest, I think it'll be one of those where people will turn their nose up at it. And even if they don't turn their nose up at it, they'll probably go, who and what on earth is this appointment? But he is the next. I think we genuinely believe, and Oxford genuinely believe, he's the next coach to come to England and come to this football, especially to the Football League, and be the progressive, front-footed young manager that's going to be and hopefully do that with what is a really good Oxford side already this season. He's someone that's been on our radar for a long period of time, and in fact, a decade ago, he was an Oxford United coach. He's promoted by Chris Wilder to be part of the coaching setup. Like you say, there he's had stints in America. He's come back to England to work with Stoke. He's done national team football with New Zealand under 20s, and then actually took over their New Zealand. Well, he took over the role as assistant manager with New Zealand too. But he qualified New Zealand under 20s for major tournaments. The first, I think they got the highest recorded finish in a men's tournament in New Zealand. He actually took over Wellington Phoenix as assistant, then got interim manager, took them from relegation to promotion from January to the end of the season. And then at Mumbai, again, you've got to look at sort of where this is happening. And again, the Indian Super League is very, very different to the Football League, and that's got to be remembered. But he created a Mumbai City side that played some of the best football that league has ever seen. And again, you can only look at that league that we're talking about, but he is a very, very exciting young coach. And it's quite difficult to explain until we can sort of see it, and hopefully we can see it. The appointment of Dez Buckingham also had to be really, really important and had to be correct because Liam Manning played a certain way. And of course, they both came through the City group together. So we can clearly see the pathway remains the same. The direction of the football club remains the same. The philosophy is very, very similar. Of course, there are differences because every coach does have a difference in the way they approach the football games. But ultimately, they do have very, very similar philosophies, and the principles remain, like I say, pretty much the same. But we'll have to wait and see if he can replicate that in the Football League. I think he's got the CV of somebody who's extremely ambitious, who's not scared to take on a challenge, who's at 30, I think he's 38 years of age. He's managed in New Zealand, Australia, and in India, and in America. He has achieved things all over every corner of the world, and now he's going back to Oxford, where I think, to be honest, his stock is at its highest. I think it's a really exciting appointment, but one that you'll have to wait and see because there is a risk element to it, but a really exciting feel around it, to be honest, short term.
Yeah, and I think I just mentioned actually before we started recording that I think Liam Manning's start has almost put a lot of pressure on him quite quickly. I think basically there is only one way that it can go. It can either stay as it is or it goes downwards if things don't go his way. And things are tightening up at that part of the table as well. So a slow start could mean that you do start dropping down the table. So we'll move on to sort of last season. I completely forgot about this game, to be honest. When you came,
Don't say it.
When you came to our place and basically beat us 3-1, that was easily the worst home game that we've experienced this season. And I think we beat you 1-0 at your place, was it?
Yes, it was 1-0. That was got to be. I think that wouldn't have been under Liam Manning. That would have still been under Carl Robinson. And that was a result that probably was one of the ending results of Robinson's reign, to be honest.
Yeah. I'd like you to remove the 3-1 win at the Reebok out of your sort of answer. But
right.
Looking at Bolton, what are your thoughts on the Bolton side, the current side, but what you've seen over the past couple of years?
I think one that's transitioned quite a little bit and one that's had to transition and get used to League One after that promotion from League Two. I think it's always very difficult when a football club like Bolton with that history and fan expectation comes to League One, because there is an aim and intention to get out of it straight away. I think even you'd admit that the aim is to get out of League One straight away, and that isn't possible, or isn't easy for sure. I think it is possible. Clubs have done it, but it's certainly not straightforward. Our Sunderland fans, our Sheffield Wednesday fans, you can ask Sheffield Wednesday fans next season because it looks like they'll be back with us anyway. So I think, so they've got to try that again. It's not a straightforward thing, this league. It's not a case of,
don't we know?
It's not. I think sometimes people can turn their nose up at League One and sort of go, yeah, this is, if we maybe, even if not, that I don't think Bolton have done this to any sort of extent, but we can throw money at it and try and get out of it. Teams have tried that and that haven't worked. It's a very, very difficult beast to fight, and it's one that you've got to find the right thing. And I use that word thing. I don't like using that word because it's very, very open, but you've got to try and find the right thing that works for your football club and the best way of trying to approach it. And every football club, there isn't one way of getting out of League One. There's multiple ways that have done it, and teams that have done it in those different ways. So yeah, I honestly think Bolton are in a fantastic position right now. That they're chasing Oxford and Portsmouth. I thought they were quite shaky in the early stages of the season, performance-wise. I thought there was a little bit of a hot and coldness to you. I thought there was a little bit of complacency in games where you made it so much more difficult than you needed to make it. There were moments where I just thought, I'm not quite sure why Bolton are doing that at that moment. You've played last season ultimate domination football, and you haven't scored goals, and you've sort of drawn and dropped points in games because of that. And then the early stage of this season, you sort of played very, very heavy metal football at times, and then also allowed the opposition into the game and allowed them to sort of gain total control, and then made it very, very tough for yourself where you didn't need to. But I think in recent weeks that's changed. Yes. And now things look in a much better place. I think finally Ian Evatt and the direction of Bolton this season, it sort of clicked into gear, and everything sort of seems a little bit more obvious and clear visually from a Bolton perspective. I think even externally from my angle, Bolton look a very, very difficult entity to stop right now, because you're in a fantastic place and a great run.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I think you answered that question as if you have been watching us this season. It's been incredibly frustrating.
I'm so glad it's not just us that have seen that.
I know, yeah.
Like, the fact everyone else can see it too does make me a bit happier.
But also at the moment we're a frightening prospect to play, and we're pretty much a juggernaut since we had that terrible defeat against Carlisle. We had the international break and some things clicked together. You sort of go into there's no easy way and simple way of getting out of this league. There's also one thing what we want to do, which other teams haven't done. We use Wigan as an example, is get out of the league and stay out of the league as well. You've got to do it sustainably. And I think although it's taking its time, I think the way we are doing it gives us a solid foundation for that. Ben, have you got any questions before we sort of move on to the good bits?
I do love the good bits. So having a bit more of a look at your season, obviously, you're second. There's going to be a lot of players that have played well. Who are some of the unsung ones, the ones that have sort of gone under the radar a bit for you?
McGuane has been exceptional. Marcus McGuane's been exceptional. Kieran Brown, I think he's had somebody that started the season a little bit slowly after a fantastic season last season. That's why I bring him up again, because in recent weeks I've been really impressed with him. But Marcus McGuane's been fantastic. James Beadle, I think you've got to mention James Beadle. Ruben Brannigan is a huge reason why Oxford have been so successful and even won games. I think even when we've been poor, Brannigan sort of pulled us through games. And I think this season everybody else has been much better. So Brannigan hasn't maybe stood out unbelievably, whereas previous seasons he has done. But what he does do is everything he normally would do to an incredible degree, and he's still a very, very important player. He was injured, I think, for 3 games or ill for 3 games, and I think we didn't win one of those. I think it was away for Blackpool, and we drew that game. We lost to Wigan comfortably, and we drew to Wycombe, and it was Brannigan missing all 3 of those games. We didn't win one of them. I think Brannigan came and actually scored a penalty against Wycombe, so slightly off there. I think he came on at 70th minute, but in a large majority of those games, he wasn't a part of it. And you could tell the difference of him not being on the pitch. His sort of general influence and aura is a big loss and was a big loss, but he's back now and Brannigan has to be up there. Sonny Mills has done great work since he joined on loan from Everton. Kyle Edwards has been injured, but he could be back for the game and should be back for the game against yourself in just over a week's. It's just over a week's time, isn't it? Yeah, just over a week's time. A week next Tuesday. So he should be back for that. Marcus Brown's was one to watch out for. But I'd say my top two would be McGuane for sure, and then you'd probably have to put Ruben in that hat with, and I'm scared I'm missing people, and Greg Lee as well. Greg Lee at left wing back has been exceptional. So I'd go Lee, McGuane. And I've forgotten the one I just said before that. Definitely McGuane and Lee, but there's been a lot. And Ruben for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that's your entire team. That's not terrifying.
And I know that is, again, you asked that question when we are second in the league and we are playing quite well. That's quite difficult. But yeah, if I had to give 2 or 3, it'd be between Marcus Lee and Ruben.
To be fair, I did the same. We was on. I was on with the Wednesday Till I Die podcast just before the playoffs, and he asked me the same question. And in front of thousands of people, I answered literally every single person in our starting lineup. So we'll let you off for that. From the outside looking in, then in terms of Bolton players, who do you think is going to cause you the most bother, and how do you think Oxford will tackle the game? I do appreciate that you're going at this with limited knowledge with a new manager, but how do you think you should tackle it?
Hopefully the same way that we have done. I don't think he's going to change too much. I honestly don't. If people are going to sort of look at this appointment and go, sort of, what is that? Or what have they done there? But the way that he plays is very similar. The setup is going to be very similar, and he's also going to be surrounded by people that have been here already this season. Liam Manning took assistant Chris Hogg with him and analyst with him, but he's still got Craig Short there, who took the game against Leyton Orient. He's still got the goalkeeping coach there. And there were people in that football club, he hasn't taken the entire team. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that, and he would have done his research as well. He would have watched plenty of games. I'm sure he's probably watched every single Oxford game. So he's going to come into this fully aware of that situation and who he's going to work with. He's also, it been pausing on Thursday, apparently he took training today. He's going to take training on Friday, and he's going to take training every day next week. And he's going to have a game before you as well. So for Bolton, I think for yourself, it's going to be, we would have already seen him manage a game before we play you, which I think is going to be really, really
what
exciting.
What is your next game?
Do it Cheltenham away.
That's a nice little start, isn't it?
It would have been nicer before when Elliot came in at Cheltenham. I'd like to have played Cheltenham maybe in the first sort of 10 games they had. But based on the fact that on paper, which football isn't played on paper, but that is, the reasoning behind the fact I think we should beat Cheltenham. You should beat Cheltenham if we have any aspirations of staying where we are. But yeah, in that Bolton team, to come back to your question, who I've been concerned about. I've always liked your midfield three. I've always liked the options you've got in there. I think Dempsey, Morley, and Sheehan have always scared me in terms of sort of their ability as a free. I think you've got lots of striking options. Dion Charles is somebody that is a little bit hot on goal. I've always been a little bit, I'm not fully sure on Dion Charles all the time, but his goal scoring record,
he can score goals, but he doesn't necessarily play well, and it sort of gives him that credit to sort of have an off game. So you can understand why some clubs would think maybe he's not the right choice for us.
You can't argue the goal scoring record, which is why which is what you've just said there. I think as an actual footballer in a certain system, he'd be terrible. But his goal scoring record is very, very good, and that will keep him. And it
works for us, I think.
Yeah, and he's got he'll press everything. He'll press everything, and he'll score a good amount of goals, and quite a good number of goals that you need to score when you have aspirations of getting promoted, for sure. I think there are aspects of his game that do need to be improved, but ultimately you can't argue with the numbers. I really like your three. I think Santos, since he's come in, has been exceptional. I think since he's come in, I say come in, not even, I don't mean when he signed for Bolton, I mean as in coming back from injury this season. I think he's been a huge boost. I think your back three now looks completely settled. I think everything in that side looks settled. I sent him my podcast the other day, and actually since this run started for Bolton, I think we can all sort of see now what this Bolton team is going to look like. I think we also have a settled 11 and everything's a bit more clear. There's one thing I'd say: when Bolton weren't doing that in the early parts of this campaign, it looked a little bit patchy, because I think there was sort of like a few question marks over who was doing what and where everybody was going to be at what point. I think now that sort of settled 11 has come to fruition. Santos coming in is a big boost for that. it all seems a little bit more clear. I think with clarity comes good results, and I think that's what we've seen with Bolton. So yeah, I'm hugely concerned about Bolton coming to Casal. I'm hugely concerned about you chasing us for second place. Your squad's fantastic. You've got depth in lots of positions. You were good last season, and that's what you would have learned a lot from last season as well. You would have learned a lot from the disappointment of losing in the playoff semi-finals to Barnsley. So you're going to be up for it, and you're going to make it very difficult, and also be fully aware of what's up for grabs here. You beat Oxford United and you'd be in the top two depending on what happens on Saturday, but you'd like to think probably we both win on Saturday, or we both get a decent result on Saturday, the winner will probably be in second. Whether we remain in second or you take second, it's going to be a really interesting encounter, because you've got a great squad there, as of Oxford this season.
Yeah, well, it's quite an interesting next 3 games for us, to be honest. We've got Exeter City, sort of similar position to you, where we think, and it's at the Reebok as well. So we're like, that's 3 points, really, in theory.
Yeah.
Then we've got Oxford, and then we've got Portsmouth. So it's absolutely massive.
So you got Oxford and Pompey back to back?
Yes. I
Both
can't
away.
wait.
Wow. That is, I didn't know that. I didn't know
rough,
that. I didn't know
rough.
that.
So basically, it's not a season decider, but it could shape sort of how we go into the second half.
Absolutely.
Of the season.
It's going to say a lot about who we are as a team, I think, those 2 games. Like, we've not, as much as most recently, the run we've been on, we've not played anyone close to that quality.
No. Peterborough were, Wigan were good, but have never replicated that kind of play that they did against us at the Reebok.
Don't talk to me about that.
We like to speak about that game. I think Blackpool look good, but they clearly have something missing as well. So I think these 2 teams are the ones that we really need to be watching. Again, Derby County, they're missing something as well. So best opportunity we've had since being in this division compared to some of the teams we had to face last year. So we normally do a played for both sides tennis. So you'd say like,
right.
But I've really struggled for Oxford. I wrote Neil Watmore, and then that's it. So it's not really.
I've got 3 others.
Have you? Go on.
Rob Hall.
Rob Hall, yeah.
I don't know how he ever did for Oxford. He's part of one of the most frustrating Bolton games ever.
Yeah, he's not really.
Is that Oh no, this is going to really show my lack of knowledge on the history of these 2 clubs. Rob Hall, as it. Yeah, that is the forward Rob Hall. He played as a winger. Yeah. No, very good, very good for Oxford United. He spent quite a lot of time at Oxford. In fact, I'm pretty sure, it's the team where he played the most amount of games in his career. So, yeah, I think he'll go down as a very successful player for Oxford. I scored a very important goal against Swindon, which for Oxford fans means the world. So even if he wasn't very good, that one goal would have probably seen him as a legend anyway.
There's James Henry.
Yeah, still at the football club. Still at the football club.
We had him. We were in League One before we went down into League Two.
Was that Phil Parkinson?
Yeah. I only remember he scored a 90th minute winner against Scunthorpe on like New Year's Day or something.
Right.
And then Joe Riley, who was a right back, who we had when we were in the Prem, and eventually ended up at Oxford. He eventually ended up at Oxford, yeah.
I think he's working for Fleetwood or something now.
Yeah.
The coaching staff. He was tipped to be one of a great player, wasn't he?
Well, we had him and we had Joey O'Brien coming in at right back, and then both of them found out they had like glass knees, so it all just went a bit downhill for him.
That was the direction of all of our young prospects back then, though, wasn't it? Really, let's be honest.
Joe Riley did play in that 5-0 win against Stoke, though.
He did.
Oh, nice. I thought it was his debut.
It might have been. So to finish up then, could I push you for a score prediction? I know I've not even thought about this myself, so it's going to be very much off the cuff.
Nor have I. I've never done a preview with a game before. I think that does dictate.
It's an orthodox.
It is. I respect it, actually. I respect the forward planning and international break, 100%. Let's see where you've done it. I would, yeah. So I do believe score predictions are heavily influenced by Cheltenham. Also, in terms of asking Oxford fan for a score prediction before a game with a new manager, I tell you what, there's a few things to put in the hat. To be honest, I think this is probably going to be the most.
We are being a bit cruel.
This is the most blindsided prediction I've probably ever given in my life, not just in football. So I'm going to say 1-1. I'm going to say 1-1. I'm going to sit on the fence, play extremely safe, and say 1-1. I'd love to win. I think home advantage will be helpful for us. I think it'll be the first home game under Dez Buckingham. He's a legend at Oxford. You know, he's a bit of a legend already because he's been and started his career there. They're going to be 100% behind him and the team. So, yeah, I'm going to go 1-1, to be honest. Yeah.
So my methodology is that we'll keep winning games, and we're probably going to win again against Exeter. And I just think we'll be due at this point, dropping points. So I'm actually going to back your 1-1 with a 1-1. I also think it's going to be 1-1. Come on, Ben, throw something interesting.
After a 1-1. No, before everything you've just said, Jack, I was going in with the blind optimism that I think me and Ryan always have.
Which can work, well.
Yeah, sometimes.
To be honest. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Jordan thought we'd win 59-18 recently, so
he read it off a beer bottle.
Was that football he was predicting?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The loose cannon of the team.
You're so polite about him.
He's not messing, that's why.
No, with everything you're saying, it does dampen my thought process slightly. However, I think if any manager is going to turn up to someone's first home game and beat them and then be cocky about it afterwards, it's going to be Ian Evatt.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be our hardest game of the season. But I think we will win 2-1.
Ooh. And then lose to Portsmouth away.
Almost certainly. In front of everyone.
I'd much rather the other way around, I'll be honest. I'd much rather the other way around.
I can't see
I'm sure you would.
Point to those two games, and with it being, it's a bit of a shame, really. A lot of fans planned their weekend around the Portsmouth game, and then it being moved to a Monday night. But there's also, you've got to take it. You want to be a successful club, you will get moved for TV fixtures and stuff. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thank you very much for joining us there. Really appreciate it. And we might meet again towards the end of the season when things are getting a little bit tight. Potentially, we'll see. It could be a playoff conversation. But yeah, thank you very much for your time there. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me on, and good luck as well. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Good luck, but apart from the player, you as well.
Says it, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Sarah.